Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Devontae Colonel, and welcome to another episode of the Inspired Challenge Podcast. On today's episode, I'm excited to talk to a man that has a lot of experience when it comes to both battle, when it comes to working his way through years and years of experience, certifications of all sorts, all kinds of testing. And now he has come to join us to discuss all of these affairs and more. So without further ado, let me introduce you guys to Mr. Jorge Vazquez.
Hey, everybody. How y'all doing tonight? I hope everybody's good. I'm very excited to be here.
Man, blessed to have you, Jorge. Truly, truly. Let's give... Nope. Let's give it up for the man one time. So, Jorge and I, we were actually connected through a mutual contact. One, Chaunston Jennings. Shout out to that boy, Chaunston. He hooking it up, putting people into connection with each other. Jorge's awesome. He's also going to be starting up his own content as well. So that's going to be something coming on in the pipelines. Anybody that wants to check out his stuff, all of his links to everything he has is in the description of the video. Feel free to go there, follow him afterwards. Make sure to leave a like and a comment as you're coming in, or if you see anything going on that you have an opinion on as well. The man has plenty of opinions, and we're certainly going to dive into them. So please introduce to the people your age, where you're from, what you do for work, hobbies, and your relationship status.
All right. So my name is Jorge Vazquez. I'm originally from Puerto Rico. I am 39. I am a life coach or empowerment life coach. My ideal clients are men between the age of 28 and 48, and I help them achieve balance in their life by getting breakthroughs in the area of mind, body, and spirit. So a whole life wellness. That's what I do for a living. That's my age. I am a single father of one. And that answered the last question, single father. That was the last question.
Yeah.
All right.
Wrapped it all up. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jorge. So, my man, it is the month of June, which means there are always things happening in especially this month.
Absolutely.
Certain people join in, certain people don't join in. But before we get into any conversations involving that, I want to get the people into understanding you and your past and to be able to set up the picture for everyone. So could you please inform us all about what it was like for you growing up, what your home life looked like, the values that were instilled into you as a child, and how that shaped you?
Okay. I did grow up in a traditional family nucleus. Father and mother were together. I had two other siblings. I was the youngest. But it's not like most people think. People always think the youngest has it like easy, has it smooth. Like it wasn't like that in my house. I've never hung out with my brothers growing up until a certain age. They always did their own thing. I did my own thing. And you can tell, like, I'm the extrovert. I'm the one that goes out and talks to everybody. And they're very introverted and keep to themselves where they were. You know, age and wisdom, all those things come up, and you start learning that, hey, you have to speak to people. You have to engage and interact with people. So I had that advantage again in life, you know, learning things. Because I didn't feel quite welcomed at home by my siblings, and to be honest, a little bit more from my father as well, I sought out love outside of the house. So as a youth looking for love outside of the house, where does that usually lead?
Oh, yeah, to the prettiest girl.
Either the prettiest girl or the wrong roads, right? So and for me, it was slightly both, but leaning more towards the wrong road. So made some mistakes, learned from them. Obviously, I don't do any of that stuff anymore.
Right.
Just to be clear, it's been decades. Right. Learned a lot of good qualities from my parents, from both my mother and my father, but also learned on how not to do things. Parenting doesn't come with an instruction manual. More so now than they did back then. There was very little of books or literature that you can do, and how to raise your children both to be a good man and pillar of the community or not,
right?
And a good proper woman and things like that. There's no real books. You pretty much have to take the knowledge that you have and help guide them to the best of your ability. And that's what my father did and my mother did, while doing their best to maintain a unified family nucleus. So, but me being the sponge that I am, the seeker of knowledge, I pay attention to everything. Actions, vocabulary, what you say, how you say it. So I've always been very attention to detail. And by the age of 13, my father had a martial arts academy in Michigan Avenue called East Coast Kung Fu Academy. For those that were here long enough, they know of this. For those that went to high school and middle school with me, they know that we did demonstrations at school, so they know of this. I was one of the senior students, and I was the one teaching the entry level and up to mid-level students that came into the dojo. That's actually where my coaching started, because I was into fitness and nutrition already, and I was already dual enrolling in high school through culinary, which has a nutrition program.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was already coaching at 14, mind, body, and spirit, because traditional martial arts speak about unifying the mind, body, and spirit.
100%.
So I've been doing this coaching through one way, shape, or form, either independently in one of those forms or all together, since I was 14.
Okay, that makes sense. I was going to say, because you don't look over 40, 50. So for you to be doing something for 20 years, I'm like, how in the world did that?
Yeah, most people, I started very young.
Yeah.
And then I started my personal development journey of learning at 14. One of my uncles introduced me to Tony Robbins at that point. Daily Magic, to be specific. All I need is within me now. You know?
Okay.
So that's how I started the journey of personal development. And that's when I started, because that's what helped me get out of the bad situations that I put myself in outside of the house, doing the work, the inner work, and realizing that I don't need anything externally. I need to be happy with myself first before I start seeking happiness from somewhere else. So then I started looking inward, and I started swimming upstream, as they call it, and figuring out what the root cause of my problems were. I was always forward thinking.
Yeah.
Ask anybody that knows me growing up. They're like, he's always been a visionary. He's always been, they would say, someone would say in the clouds, but because they don't know the process that I put on paper behind it. They just heard what I told them in front, my goals and my aspirations, and they're scary. So if you're not dreaming to the point where you scare people around you, you're not dreaming big enough, and you need to adjust your dreams.
When it comes to some of those things that you went through, the ways that you sought love, I'd like to go into that a little bit, because I think there's a lot of value in some young men being able to see what it was 20 years ago and what was the coping mechanisms versus what they're doing now, what their coping mechanisms are now.
Oh, well, they added a different type of coping mechanism now. They still have what I grew up with, but it's more likely that people fall into the virtual getaways and almost become a hermit, right? They seclude themselves from everybody and everything, and they just stay in their own little imaginary world as a coping mechanism for feeling love somewhere else. Now the world is now smaller than it was, because you can connect with someone halfway across the world in Tokyo or Thailand or whatever that's also in front of the game, and you can share stories and connect through like experiences and find yourself being lost in there. But when I was growing up, we didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, cell phones weren't even a thing.
That's true. World without cell phones.
Cell phones were a thing. They were just huge, like shoeboxes.
Completely impractical.
Right, and the middle class didn't really have them. You only saw them with like doctors and lawyers and pagers and beepers was when I grew up. Like I actually had a pager and a beeper. Yeah, and I had a Palm Pilot.
Palm Pilot. What's that?
It's a digital scheduler. Now you have it as an app in the phone.
Yeah.
Before it was a whole device on its own. Crazy. So you had a phone, and you had a laptop, and you had a Palm Pilot. Now everything is all in one. Right? When I grew up, it was all separate. And even before then, I had a CD player. I had a static resistant CD player. So when I went jogging, it was a huge box taped to my arm pretty much, or on my fanny pack. while I was jogging around the neighborhood or something like that.
I love those CD players, man. Oh man.
But I put them to the test because I used to do parkour and free running growing up too. I just love like getting from point A to point B faster, no matter the obstacles in the way. So I used to always challenge myself.
Oh yeah, you had them things jangling up and down
everywhere, right? But the coping mechanisms that I had growing up, getting out of that rabbit hole back into the first one, gangs and drugs, that still exists to this day, just as much as it did before, if not a little bit more. The thing is that people tend to turn a blind eye to some of the things that are happening, and they don't pay attention. And that's where you lose track of kids. The parents are so busy in what they need to do, roof over the head, food in the belly, clothes in the back, make sure the grades are good in school, that they don't pay attention to the stuff outside of school and who's hanging around their kids when they're not in school.
So when it comes to as adults, and sometimes I think that there's this disconnect that happens between those that are involved in gang life and those that they perceive to be outside of it. Those outside of it typically talk about it in ways of violence and what it takes away. And I was talking with a young man the other day, and he was telling me about how he was with the gang and he left it. But one of the things that made it so difficult for him to leave it was that if he knew someone, aunt down the street or something, friend had a mom who couldn't pay the bills, a gang member would come along and maybe pay that light bill or take care of something. Like I said, it seems like there's one of two, but let's talk about some of the pieces of what actually makes gang life attractive and the understanding of the yin of it that comes along with that yang aspect, since
Absolutely.
you have firsthand experience.
Absolutely. So it's the welcoming aspect, the unity aspect, and the support and strength. There's strength in numbers. If you have an issue and you're in a gang, your gang's going to back you up whether you're right or wrong. Just like a family would, just like your mother would, just like your father would. If you are wrong, they're still going to defend you. They'll correct you behind closed doors. The gang provides that same level. However, they're very loose with the rules. So they allow things that are not good for you or the community in their own community. So that, and that's the drugs and violence and stabbings or shootings, drive-by stuff like that. That doesn't help anybody.
Right. The structure that they set is something that, as your experience was with it, was that something comforting, or was there ever a desire to rebel against that structure in the same way like maybe a school structure? And what's the difference between those structures that get a different response from the members involved?
So with the school structure, there are adults. And it's hard as a kid to walk up to the adult and be like, I run stuff now. Whereas in a gang, you're all about the same age, maybe a couple years difference at most. And the ability to, quote unquote, move up the ranks is there, so long as you are smarter, bigger, and badder, and tougher, and take less smack from people. So the ability to move up the ranks, if you have ambition in that aspect, is there. So it's another bit of desire if you're thinking that small. If your ultimate goal is to be the leader of that gang, and that's all that you aspire to become.
And then, so there aren't adults, and you're definitely right. I've definitely known guys that they look at someone who's kind of the leader of it. Usually that person is only at maximum 2, maybe 3 years older, just because they have got more connections and whatnot. But where do people that are like OGs fit into that space, who are like that adult figure, and why is there not that kind of rebellious spirit in that aspect?
So once you pass a certain age group, people at a younger age start looking up to, not looking sideways. So 13, 14-year-old that's in a gang full of 18, 19-year-olds, they're going to feel like there's possibility for growth, like they can do better. But once they become OG, and they get to a certain point where they're no longer doing day-to-day peon stuff, quote unquote. They're doing more delegation things, and have, I want to say, people that'll do aggressive negotiations for them. Then it goes to a next level. Now it's just someone snapping their finger and someone else is doing their dirty work. And now that's a power move. Now people that are entry level are looking up to, well, he's got power. He can snap his fingers and people will move. Things will happen. I'm going to aspire to be him. And loyalty is still built, but loyalty for the wrong people. Like this whole thing, none of it benefits neither you or anybody else that's in that gang. Now, there are gangs, quote unquote gangs, groups of people that are there to serve the community. Yeah. They don't call them gangs anymore. Back in the day, they used to call them gangs. They were all gangs. Now they just call them groups.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, and I know that's how gangs got their origin, is they were meant to be the sort of police force for the local area apart from the police force.
Correct. So that aspect of helping someone out in their neighborhood was still a thing back in the days in gangs. And that's where you see, and in Puerto Rico, I'm not going to say the word, but it's the leader of the... I don't want to say a word that might get fly. Anyways, they're in charge of a specific neighborhood and making sure everybody's good for defense and things like that. But they're also the ones that provide all the bad stuff. So they do things to help the community to gain the loyalty of the community.
Right.
So like it's like, oh, I'm going to do this for you, but now you owe me one. So I'll help you pay the rent, but now you owe me one. Yeah. I'm going to help you with your groceries, but now you owe me one. And like that, it's like tit for tat. And then their kids that are growing up see that, and now, oh, he's in a gang, he's a leader, and he's been helping the community. I want to help the community and still be able to do what I want when I want, with whoever I want, doing whatever stuff I feel like I want to do, regardless of any of the repercussions.
So it's at the end of the day, it all comes back to the power element. Whether it's doing service for others, it's to build up that favor, which is a power move.
Loyalty, favor, being united, having support structure, all of those things. Like you can have support structure. You can speak to your kids and ask them questions and gear the conversation to their own benefit and have them come up with the answer that you wanted to give them, and which direction you want them to go, and have it so that they said it themselves. Yeah, that's called knowing the outcome of the conversation before you get into it. I'm not the only one that preaches this. A good friend of mine, Jamie Miller, is one that he's on about communication. He's a communication business coach. Know the outcome before you go into the conversation. It's no matter what the age group is. So if you want someone to do something for you, know the outcome prior to going into that conversation, so you can ask the appropriate questions. Yeah. So that way the result is exactly what you wanted, but it seems like they came up with the answer.
Yeah. And that's
kind of quote unquote manipulation, but it's not a bad manipulation. Just like too much of anything is bad. Yeah. If you do persuasion to an extreme, it could be bad. But How to Win Friends and Influence People is a very good book and allow you to excel in the business world and in your personal life.
Absolutely.
Change from a follower to a leader.
For sure. And I know we dovetailed from you explaining the origin, so I do want to allow you to return to that.
Okay, the origin of, remind me again.
You were talking about
previous life.
Yes, 100%. Your previous life. Which also, I would love for you to cover your story in a way that also sets up and explains your testimony for how you came to the Lord.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the first time I left my father's house, I was 14.
The same time that you started?
Shortly after I started personal development, I left my father's house because of how his leadership style affected me. I didn't settle for what he was able to provide. If I wanted something else and I asked him for it, and he would give me the Bill Cosby rundown. For those that don't know what that is, I asked my father for $5. He said, "What? $4? Why are you asking me for $3 when 2 is enough? Here's $1. Split it with your brothers." So I got 33 cents because I'm the youngest.
Oh, man.
Right? So, and it happened a couple of times. Long story short, the book fair was in school, and I wanted to get a book. he didn't want to give me the money for it. Well, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and rightly so. However, if you don't take into account the wants of your community that you're in charge of, your community is going to eventually leave you.
100%. Yeah.
So my father also had a rule about video games, which is fine. Like, there's only 2 hours a day in this house for video games, period. There's 3 boys. 2 hours total is not enough. In an era where there are only 2-player games, Super NES, Nintendo, Sega Genesis. There was no 3-player games. There was no, tournament style games for the most part. There was a couple, but my brothers were really good at video games, and they never died. There was no passing the controller.
That's right.
I learned real quick. They were like, oh, when you die, you pass the controller. Well, you know what? They never died. So I always got fed up, and I got up and I left, and I always ended up playing outside, playing sports, playing with my friends, making things. I used to do wood carving. I used to make bows and spears and stuff out of everything that I found. I was very into ancient weapons, and I'm still am to this day. But I would choose a bow over a gun.
Oh snap! My man was on his arrow quiver stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Spears and katanas over.
Man.
But I digress. So the first time I left my father's house, I was 14. I came back because my mother asked me to come back close to 15. And I was in and out because she would have a conversation with my father. He'd promise to change, and he would regret. He would revert. And whenever he reverted, we would butt heads a lot, and I would dip out. So eventually, and prior to all of that, let me backtrack a little bit. The Bill Cosby rundown happened first when I was 10. I was in elementary school in 5th grade, and I got the Bill Cosby rundown. Enough for me to be like, all right, I'm never going to ask him for money again. And then I asked my brothers for the other 33 and 34 cents, the 3 times I asked, so I had a total of $3. And I went and bought, at that time you could do this, a 5-pound bag of candy. I took the zip ties from the garbage bags. Back in the day, there weren't the elastic bands that we have now. There were the zip ties, like a bag of bread, and little sandwich bags. And I made individual bags of 5 pieces of candy, and I sold them at school for 50 cents a piece. Until I got caught, and they told me not to do it again. But by the time that happened, I had already upgraded to cookies and brownies. I learned how to do that from my mom, which is, I started to fall in love with the culinary arts at that time, which I told you earlier.
Yes.
I went to culinary school. I dual enrolled. So it didn't take me long to realize that the road that I was going down was a bad road, because I'd already started doing personal development. However, once you're in, it's almost impossible to get out of gangs. And even if you, by chance, I was one of the lucky ones, I was able to get out, there's still people that reach out to you from those gangs. And there's still temptations, and there's still, oh, we did this for you, you need to do this for us. And there's still the conversations you have to go back and forth with these people unless you move out of your environment. If you need to get out of a situation like this, you need to leave the environment. Your proximity is too close. Which
then kind of goes into a whole another rabbit hole. We can indulge real quickly.
Absolutely.
And it's that thing of people say, oh, once you wanted to do something and then you end up leaving your spot instead of giving back to it. Or you did something, or you want to do something and you leave your spot, and people will attach that to the idea of being a sellout.
Or abandonment.
Right.
They'll feel abandoned, or they'll feel left out, and they'll be like, oh, you changed. It's like, yeah, change is a normal thing. Change is actually supposed to happen.
Yeah. But to people in a certain
demographic
or in a certain socioeconomic situation, those people will say, well, what the heck? We're supposed to be like family. So how was that navigation for you? How did you actually take the fingers off, nail by nail, finger by finger, to where you no longer owed that debt or owed to that ethos?
Felt like I owed.
Right.
So they definitely use manipulation in their tactics to get people to stay.
Mm.
You owe us this because of this, et cetera, et cetera. If you leave, we're going to do this, either to you or to the people you love, right? Type deal. So it changes from the open leader's hand to the closed leader's fist,
Right.
which is another good book, by the way. And you have to realize, you have to start breaking down the situation. It was part of what I help people, how you swim upstream and how you problem solve for your past traumas. You need to write it all down, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the facts and the emotions, and only highlight the facts. Because the facts is what's going to help you solve the problem. The emotion is going to keep that issue lodged in your brain, in the front of your mind, and keep So there are instances where the quote-unquote leader of the gang is trying to be or portray a father figure. Well, a father figure would not, a good father figure, let me rephrase that, a good father figure would not do that type of leadership. And if you had in the past, if you actually wrote down everything that your father did for you before you decided to leave the house for whatever reason, because you felt a certain type of way without having a conversation, you let your emotions take the best of you, then you'll realize that the father was doing all the right things and hit the best ability that he had at that time. He did not ever say the things that the gang leader said. He never said, if you do this, I might kill you or, hurt your family or anything like that. He didn't say, my father never said any of that.
Man.
You know what I'm saying? So when you break down how the behavior patterns of the gang family and the real family, you realize that the gang family is not a gang family. It's just a gang.
Yeah.
They're trying to make you feel like you're at home until they need something.
Makes sense.
And then it keeps you there. But once you break it down to nuts and bolts, not trying to be cliche, but you break it down to the brass tacks, nuts and bolts, you'll find out the facts of the situation, and you'll be able to separate the emotion that you had towards it, and you'll have an epiphany moment, aha moment. The button.
Where is it?
What do we have there?
What do I have?
Okay, there we go.
Something like that.
Yeah, sorry.
We're getting there.
So, and I had to go through those things. I was grateful or, blessed enough to have an uncle that believed in personal development and was also a forward thinker. For him to then spend the morning that day at my father's house as opposed to whatever he had going on in his life at that time. I was 14. I never asked him what was going on in his life. I never thought like that as a 14-year-old. It's like, hey, are you good? Right. It never occurred to me at 14 to ask an adult that, right? But he came over and he asked me, because he knew that I worked out every morning. He knew that I always went running or I did martial arts or something like that. So he asked me if I wanted to walk with him. I said, sure. And then he put on his headset and he started doing daily magic. And I'm like, whoa, what's that? I'm like, all right. Then he introduced me and he gave me one of the earbuds and he had the other bud. And then we tried our best to walk side by side because those cords are really short.
Right.
But that's when I was like, all right, can I get a copy of that tape? Cassette tape.
Right.
Name drop. Cassette tape. Cassette tape. So, and that's the stuff that launched me into self-realization. It's like, what am I doing?
Real quick, there's a stream that I did last night, and there was issues with it, so people can't find it now. But one of the videos that I had was literally a father taking 30 minutes to an hour. He would just take that time, and he would just walk with them. Not for any particular reason, not to scold them. It was just the time that was for them to walk together, and he would just sit there and wait for them. And usually what he found was that they ended up sharing their dreams with him, their hopes, what they were scared of, what's going on, way more than him trying to like pry it out of them at home. He just would be there with them in that time and let them do all the talking. And so as you're talking about walking in this proximity with the earbuds holding it all together, it made me think of that exact thing as your uncle did with you.
I do some very similar things with my son. Let's go hang out. Let's do, what do you want to do? Not what I want to do. What do you want to do? Thankfully, we like a lot of similar things. However, he chooses. So that way he knows his voice is heard. He feels welcomed. He feels appreciated. And when people feel that, they will open up and share with you whatever's on their heart and whatever's on their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I always make sure that I'm a very strict disciplinarian, but I'm also your best friend.
Mm.
You can tell me anything, no matter what, and I'll help you work through it. So I have a really close relationship with my son, thank God. And if anything happens, he knows that I need to know every detail so that I can defend him to the best. So if something happens at school, I need to be the first to know so that I can go to battle for you.
Mm-hmm.
So in a situation that happened, my son actually got in his first fight in school like maybe 2 months ago.
Wow. At what age?
Well, he's 14.
Okay.
He's 14. So his first school fight. So thankfully, he didn't have one before. I had my first school fight in the 3rd grade. And you would think it's BS if I told you. You know, if you want me to explain it, I'll go through it, but it's very miraculous. My son, he was defending his friend. He was horseplaying with his friend, granted, in school. Mm-hmm. A 3rd kid decided to jump in.
Oh.
They don't know him.
Mm-hmm.
He just decided, they're horseplaying. Let me horseplay too. He went in there, horseplayed. His friend started complaining about not being able to breathe. He put him in a headlock. The 3rd kid put his friend in a headlock. He couldn't breathe. My son told him multiple times to let him go. The kid didn't. So then my son punched him and continued to punch him until he let go. And then the teachers got there, separated them. Granted, fear hits in, knowing that your father is a veteran Marine and he's trained his whole life in martial arts. And you've seen him spar with people. There, a level of fear builds up instantly without you realizing that all of that was to show you that he has strength and restraint to protect and defend you, because that's what fathers do, protect and defend their family. That's what they're supposed to do.
Right.
We're trying to, we should, and it's another thing, one of my future goals is a men's retreat. And we'll talk about that some other time on, you know.
For sure. Oh, I'll be having you back.
Absolutely.
I'm already coming up in my head ideas of panel that you'd be great to join on.
Absolutely. And he called me, he was crying, and I was like, son, step 1, breathe. You're not in trouble with me yet. They told me you got into a fight, but they didn't tell me anything else. I need to know from you every detail so that I can talk to your teachers and principal with knowledge. I believe you over them because I know you're honest with me. And he's always been honest with me his whole life. Because when he was little, he tried to tote the line. He tries to say only part of the truth. You remember little kids, they always try to be like, oh, well, it was this. And you're like, did this happen because of this or because of that? And you start digging in for information. And then, and it's like, oh, so it wasn't that they did it to you first. You did this and then did this and caused this reaction. So then they hit you and now you're complaining to me because they hit you defending themselves when you were the one that was the cause. So I've had situations like in the past with my son, and he realized that, yeah, my dad's going to figure it out. So let me just, be honest, be true. And of course I created that safe space with him for him to be able to share. So he told me everything. And then when I got off the phone with the teachers and I explained what my son told me, they said, yep, that's exactly how it happened, because they were there. And I was like, all right, so why are you disciplining my son? If you already know that he was defending another student from a tyrant, why are you reprimanding my son? I can discipline him way more than the school system ever can. Just like my father could discipline me more than the school system could ever do. And he has. That's another story for another time. Multiple times. I was the black sheep. I was the quote unquote problem child. So there was a lot of
normally that's
friction.
the oldest.
Normally it's the oldest. Yeah, no, it was the youngest. It was me. It was me. 100%. I own it. I own it. I was, of the 3 boys, I had the most real world experience the soonest, to the point where I would give advice. So kudo. That's a kudo moment.
as you mentioned with your son in there and him being 14 now, so
he's soon to be 15.
The same age that you were as you were departing from your father. Now he is. Is there any of that sense of like, do you see any drift happening, or do you find it getting closer?
No, me and my son were like two peas in a pod. He's got a girlfriend now. He tells me everything. Okay. I don't have to ask him like, how's everything? How's your girlfriend? So, we did this, we did that, we did the other stuff. I'm like, all right, be smart. I've had the talk with him already. The talk. I've had it with him already. So just stay focused on your goals, your aspirations, things like that. He also has two older sisters that did not make very good choices. So he has that visual aid as well to help guide him. And we have conversations about everything happening in his life. And the good, the bad, and the ugly, and what he sees, what he thinks, and based on my knowledge and his experience, and help him get to, is this worth that? Or do you think you should not do that?
Yeah.
And then he answers the question. And I always do goal setting with him. His goal setting for him at his age, right? Schoolwork, stuff like that. What he wants to do in the future. Start thinking about what you want, your passions. Start thinking. Like, you don't have to have an answer right now. Just start thinking about it. Like, he's been wanting to be a Marine since he was a baby, since he saw me doing it.
Oh, man.
So he always wants to do what dad does. But does he really want that? He's still young. Right. He might still want it, but when he's 18 and enlist. Okay.
That it makes me think of, I have a little brother who, you ask him, oh, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? He'll say a pilot. And then you go and you ask, oh, well, why do you want to do that? He'll say, oh, I don't know. But then if you go and you talk to my mom, you'll figure out, oh, yeah, his cousin just graduated with her pilot's license. And then also the uncle was a pilot, and he's been a pilot for a while, and dad works as a flight attendant. And so now it's like, so he's seeing all these people.
Yes, the proximity he has. So the proximity my son had every time that I picked him up for parental rights and stuff like that, and brought him back to North Carolina. It was a military town surrounded by my military brethren. So and he sees the camaraderie. It's a gang. It's an organization.
Right.
We're a gun club.
Oh,
a gun club. Like we're the gun club.
Okay, like the NRA.
I don't know about NRA. We're nicer than that. We're about saving lives, not ending them. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to end some to save the majority, the innocent. But that's a whole different conversation for a whole other time. But he saw me around my fellow Marines. He saw my engagement in the uniform and out of uniform. So he had a lot of proximity to how we acted, how we responded, how we're always there for each other. So it's because as Marines, we go through very extreme training and extreme conditions. We are just as close, or if not closer, than family that you grew up with. Like, there's no replacing, you're in the trenches with somebody right next to you going through it, and you make it home alive, or you make it through that event or that training or whatever. There's a bond that has been created there that's not easily broken.
Yeah.
So it would need to be an extreme.
Which is it. I think it's so good for a young man to see that type of male to male relationship in that way.
It's very rarely seen or seldom seen nowadays, and it's very unfortunate. The most youth today come from broken homes. Yeah, and they don't have that positive male role model in there for one reason or another. Whether the father chose not to be there, or the mother decided that she didn't want the male role model in his life.
And the only male relationships that they do see with any type of structure would be one, like a gang, or two, like the guys who get together on TV shows and their whole thing is like, let's go get these girls.
Flashy and get the girls, and, chauvinism and pig-headedness and, all the bad qualities. Without mentioning people's names, we spoke about a specific gentleman earlier that some of the things he says is accurate, but the way he goes about doing it is totally wrong. high and to the right.
Before we get there, I do want to get back into your story. I'm sorry, I keep on pulling you off here.
No, I'm going down rabbit holes. So yes, please pull me back into the. There's definitely stories that stem off of original topics, right? So that's where, me being Latino, I get off those rabbit holes.
But they're so good though. So they're so good.
Yeah. Repeat the question again so I get back.
So you had covered being 14, gang. You were detangling yourself from that.
Correct.
And
it didn't take me long to detangle myself because of the personal development, because of the self-improvement and stuff like that. I was able to separate myself before an unfortunate incident happened and everybody in the gang got arrested a couple weeks after I left. So thankfully, I didn't, well, granted, I had nothing to do with it. I didn't say nothing to anybody. The whole, I didn't say anything to incriminate anybody. And nobody threw my name under the bus either.
Wow.
So they knew the type of person that I was and why I was leaving, and they actually respected me for it and let me go. Thankfully, it wasn't that bad of a gang.
Man.
But not many people know that story in my past life. Some people do. Not everybody knows that story. But
we appreciate you sharing it here.
I had that desire to move up the ranks. I've always been ambitious in every aspect. I'm very passionate about everything I do. There's a quote, I can't remember what the woman's name was again, but how you do anything is how you do everything. Most people don't live by that, and they should.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants a leader that's going to do things halfway, half donkey.
Y'all know what it is.
You know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Pause. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Nobody wants a leader that skips around and tries to cut corners and things like knows the process and how to get through the process as efficiently and quickly as possible without the detriment of anybody involved. They don't want a leader that's going to cut corners and be shiesty and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So,
and you conducted yourself that way in the gang, which is why they allowed you to leave as peacefully as it was able to happen.
I help people, believe it or not, I help people work through some of their emotional things that they were going through at the time because I'd already started working on personal development. I've been doing martial arts and helping people, and I was training them in unarmed combat because we needed to be the strongest gang. We needed, you know what I'm saying? Like we needed to be able to defend our people and the people that we cared about.
Right.
So when we were at school and someone picked on one of our people, we needed to be able to go in there and clean shop and everybody walk out. Right.
Yeah.
So believe it or not, I did a lot of mindset, fitness, nutrition, mindset, and emotional development, said from 14 on. Right. And again, I was a very lucky one to be able to get out. The leader of that gang, we looked a lot alike, and he was in his early 20s.
Oh, dang.
So everybody was between 14 and 18, and he was in his early to mid 20s. And I used his ID to get in places because we look almost identical. So he took a liking to me, and he saw the type of person I was, and he saw his life where it started and where he is now. And he made an important fatherly decision. I don't want to see you end up like me. When I told him I wanted out, that's what he said.
Wow.
And he was like, as long as none of our names come out of your mouth, you can leave. And I said, I'm not going to say whose names. I don't know what you're talking about.
Wow.
And I said, have a good one. If I see you around, I'll say hi, but I won't come up to you.
That is pretty amazing.
I got lucky. I got lucky on that one. Blessed. But like everything happens for a reason. Luck is created, right? It's not something that just happens. Luck is created.
God put a real one in your path there.
There's so many moments when my life should have ended, and I'm still here. And it's always propelled me to a different aha moment in my life. So does that fully answer that same question, or do I still need to dig deeper?
No, yeah,
No,
that
okay.
was great, man.
I can dig deeper. I mean,
that was
it's gonna be more
awesome.
detailed. I do have a book.
Man,
It
you
talks
guys,
a little bit about these stories.
a teaser here. If you like the man's story, I mean, like I said, his links are in the description. So
The latest learning experience, because we either win or we learn, we don't lose, right? The latest learning experience that I had was the fall of 2019, as I call it. That's when my whole world came crushing down. That's the main story that's in my book.
Oh.
But I don't want to take away from the process here. I just wanted to throw that out there. Like, I had multiple businesses. I had a marriage. I had house, cars, all that stuff. I had everything. Everything was lost.
Interesting.
Including homelessness. I'm actually a disabled veteran. I have a lot of limitations, I don't want to say, or hurdles that I have to jump every day just to be able to function as normal as possible.
Really?
So all of my issues were aggravated at the time. I was 287 pounds or 78 pounds.
Wait,
I have
what?
neck, back, hip, shoulder issues.
What are you, about 5'11"?
I am 6'1".
6'1".
I'm 6'1".
Okay.
I'm 205 pounds, and I fluctuate between 198 and 205 now because of my issues. If anything flares up, I can't do the stuff that I was to do, but I still need to eat. And I love to eat.
And you said at the time you were
278 pounds. I had a panzón. I had a big belly.
Hot dog.
I have before and after pictures on my social media. You can look at my IG and be like, oh, yeah, he had a big belly. He was 40-something, 46% body fat.
Wow.
Horrible. Completely horrible.
Wow.
And even as I started losing weight, I had to lose weight first, but I still had subcutaneous fat.
Yeah.
So I was looking skinnier, but I was still at 36 obese.
Wow.
And I had to then change my nutrition a little bit more and start doing physical exercises to increase my muscle mass to eat away at the subcutaneous fat. So, but because of my injuries, I had to do alternate exercises. I can't just do basic curls and extensions or presses of any type. Like I had to do then modified techniques, calisthenics, plyometrics, things like that, just to get started with assisted support.
Wow.
Because my joints, my hips just weren't able to handle all the weight.
Which is something a lot of people don't know. And it's something I actually had to humble myself the other day doing pull-ups. And I'm like, why the heck can't I do more than 3? And then I realized, son of a gun, you're doggone 30 pounds heavier than when you were doing 3 sets of 8. Like, of course you can't do.
As an active duty Marine, I was doing 26.
Wow.
Pull-ups. Every time I jumped on the bar, I was doing 26 pull-ups.
Jeez. That's crazy.
Like I've been told I should have been the poster child for the Marine Corps. I enlisted at 26. I turned 27 in boot camp. So everybody else around me was 18, 19 years old, except for maybe one person.
Yeah. Man.
So, and I was in the top 3 in boot camp. I was in the top 5 in MCT. My run time was my I want to say it was my weakest thing, right? I ran 3 miles in 20 minutes and 25 seconds.
Okay.
That is like a 95% score.
Jeez.
The 100% score is 18 minutes flat.
Wow.
And there were kids, 18, 19 years old, that can run 3 miles in 18 minutes.
That's crazy.
It's a 6-minute mile.
That's crazy.
The stamina to keep that up.
Dude, I get to like 3/4 of a mile and I'm like, all right, time to slow down.
I was able to run faster in high school. My mile run was 4 minutes and a half. My brother Louis was 4 minutes and 15 seconds, and my brother John was 4 minutes and 8 seconds or something like that. And they're shorter than me.
Holy crap. That amazes me. Short people that can do those distances amaze me.
When we were growing up, I was the tallest of the 3. My brother John was 5'8", and I think he's still 5'8" right now. My brother Louis was 5'10", and I was 6'1". 6'1 and a half. I tried to get that extra inch, but it didn't work. I started powerlifting. That's what it was.
It's always the weights, man.
Yeah, I told my son, I was like, don't power lift. You want to be taller than me? Don't power lift. You're 6 foot. You're almost there. Ooh. You're almost there. By 14 years old.
14-year, that's
yeah. I was like, by 14, I was 6'1".
Oh,
and then I started powerlifting.
And just cut it off.
Boom, no more growing. And I was like, son, if you want to be taller than me, just stick to the sports, martial arts, calisthenics, plyometrics. Don't lift more than like 50 pounds. stretch more than you lift.
Yeah.
Stretch more than you lift. Well, I mean,
That's so important.
I am certified. I do have a little bit of knowledge. My son has a lot of benefits.
Man, what?
But to go back to this, I had all my issues, all my physical issues, my emotional issues, my mental. I have anxiety disorder, depression disorder. People can't tell. They're like, oh, you don't look like you have any issues. That's because I know how to work through them, because I know how to manage them daily. And if you don't consistently manage them, you will fall back and regress.
Man.
So because of my repertoire of things in my arsenal, I know how to navigate through all of my issues and things. It takes me time. It takes me a couple of hours each day to do everything. But because of that, I'm able to function. And that's one of the reasons why I can't have a normal job. Because there's hours that I need to put into it. And if it's a physically demanding job, I need to do more of the recovery work.
So this is what you've just said, man. I think that's a growing population of people. And there was another thing you said previously where you said that you were a sponge, so you sopped up the things that were kind of around you. And I think that accurately describes a lot of young men. More young men now than ever, one, are sponges because of social media. So influences are getting
the proximity nowadays because of technology is crazy. And if you're not monitoring what's in front of the children, then they're going to be, and it's not monitoring to keep them sheltered. It's monitoring and having conversations.
Yeah.
Like, I have conversations with my son about language, about nudity, about what other people are doing and what's right and wrong, or what's depicted as right and wrong in our belief system. Because everybody has their own belief system. I raised my son to my belief system because that's what I know to be, in my opinion, the best.
Right.
So,
as someone with, and what are some of the things that, because I think this has immense value, as I can think of multiple students that I have. I do 5th grade and 6th grade with boys. And I can think of multiple students in each grade set where they are great kids, good energy, but they will find themselves just out of control, whether it because they have some type of ADHD, ADD, and they're like, man, I can't sit. I don't know what to do with these things. And there are conversations I have with them that are like, hey, man, you're not bad for this. What I want you to take away from this is the fact that that's your natural state. And whether or not your parents know about that, that's one thing that needs to happen. But understand that I do have a standard, and I'm willing to understand where you're at, but I'm not going to completely shift everything based off of you as the one person. But for you, how do you take between the past experiences, your repertoire, and if you could list them, and how do you manage all of them?
So before I answer that, let me just state one thing. So when I was a kid, I did go to a doctor and they wanted to diagnose me ADHD. My father refused to put me on that medication, thankfully. And that's when he put us in traditional martial arts, the deep end. So there was more benefit in that than anything else that he did. My toes in my shoes are going like this so that the rest of me can be still. Nowadays they have the little fidget trinkets that they can help them focus while their fingers are fidgeting with the fidget spinner or the little bubble things and stuff like that. They've had that for centuries in different ways. Martial arts was one of those avenues that helped instill discipline to the level that I needed it. But it had to be pretty much 24/7. My father learned Kung Fu when he was 14. And he trained the Marines in the unit he was attached to. He was in the Navy. He's a Navy vet. So I'm also a military brat. The terminology, military brat. So we used to train with him and the Marines. And we used to do buddy drills, buddy push-ups, buddy squats, buddy sit-ups, stuff like that. And we used to run circles around the Marines as kids because of my father's training. So you can tell how intense my father's trainings were. So he said, if we can't be mentally strong, we'll have to be physically strong. So the areas, quote unquote, mentally that I had some lack, I had to build up in physical capabilities. And we stretched more than we worked out, than we trained, but we didn't do like training. The person you're throwing, pretty much,
Right.
Right. If I'm grappling with you, that's going to be a thing. I have to be able to throw your weight and not hurt myself. So hence the stretching and conditioning.
For sure.
So martial arts helped me a lot, was one of my things. So I stretch and I meditate. And it's faith-based meditation. I'm Christian by faith. So everything circles back to God gave me the ability to do this. He gave me the knowledge that he put into other people in this world so that I can learn from them and apply it and give all grace to God. So no matter what I do, mind, body, and spirit, any mindset techniques that I have shifted them. To always, we talked about that and I did it.
Never fails.
To give grace, but at least I caught it in the first.
For
Hopefully
sure.
we don't do this in the next hour. Hopefully I don't do it again. It's, the hand. So I pray, I meditate, I stretch, I do calisthenics. I have knowledge and therapy techniques for my shoulders and my back, so I do those as well. My morning routine, because of all of the things that I have to do, take about an hour and a half to 2 hours, including priming. Priming is a technique that Tony Robbins uses. It's a series of breath work that he calls priming, as well as to put you in a gratitude mindset, so that way you start your day full of energy. So that takes about 15 minutes in the morning.
Okay.
And then I don't overeat. So when you feel full, you have overeaten. If you're eating until you're full and then you stop, you've overeaten. Don't do that. One, if you're not doing any physical activity that day, do you really need to eat 3 full meals? No, you just need to maintain your weight. When your body's fully at rest all day, there's a formula for your basal metabolic rate, how much your body burns if you were just laying down all day. I have a free ebook that is in one of my links. You go to my website, you subscribe to my newsletter, you get the free ebook. It gives you the formula in that book that you can use and just plug in your numbers, your age, whether you're male or female, your weight, stuff like that, and then do the calculation. You'll find out how much your body burns on a daily basis. If you consume that many calories, your body will not lose weight.
Yeah.
However, if you don't do physical activities, it'll convert the muscle into fat because you will lose your muscle mass and you will gain that weight in fat.
Yep.
So people, forget all of those things, but they also forget day fasting is very important and actually helps your body get rid of all the bad toxins throughout the day so that your body can heal properly.
So the list that I'm hearing from
There's
you
a list. It's mind, body, and spirit, and I haven't gotten to all of them, but there's things that I do for mind, for body, and for spirit. I went through a couple of them.
Yeah, and just to recap for people, they are breath work, praying, priming, fasting,
Day fasting, because some people say fasting and they do it overnight. You're already doing that. You sleep.
Yeah.
Right. That's not a thing.
Oh man.
You eat before the sun comes up and you eat after the sun sets. And the food that you're eating after the sun sets is the energy you have when you wake up.
Yeah.
The food that you're eating in the morning is the energy you have throughout the day. Now, if you do physical activity throughout the day, you need something in the middle of the day to rebalance the energy. Your electrolytes are low, right? So your sugar, your blood sugar goes low. So you need to eat something. You need to recoup. You need to.
People undercount electrolytes so much. And I know I stopped you in the midst of that list, but I don't want to stop you. If there was the fasting, praying, breath work, exercise,
meditation, nutrition, martial arts.
Huge. Martial arts
includes some of a traditional martial art, to be specific. Like there's MMA, there's multiple practices combined, and there is a level of discipline to be able to do all of that.
Right.
But it's only the physical aspect and the mindset of combat. A traditional martial arts encompasses mindset as a way of life.
Yeah.
Body and spirit as a way of life, traditional martial arts. To be specific, Eastern traditional martial arts.
That's big, yeah.
So despite their religious beliefs, if you write down or look at a book and you highlight only the important things, not the things that are opinionated.
Right.
If you look at the Tao and you look at Buddhism and you look at all of these, and you look at Catholicism, Christianity, a lot of the religions, they share a lot of commonalities that if you were just to take away their belief structure, you'll see that the baseline is more or less the same. But they don't incorporate the knowledge from those other sources of knowledge into this one.
Yeah.
In the same way, if you keep reading, they do it in a different way later on down the line. Like our hearts create a frequency, right? Heart frequency, the waves. And our brains have a brain frequency. Our vocals have a brain frequency. But do you know what our vocals also allow us to do? Connect both frequencies so they're on the same wavelength through our meditations. Now, there's a gentleman, he has some books and some audio books that he incorporates a version of verbalizing a meditation similar to Om, right? But that's Eastern religion. He changes it to the tuning forks for I am that I am. So he took the knowledge that was instilled in someone else that God gave him and made sure that the grace went back to the source. And in your meditations, you're listening to the tuning forks of I am that I am. Anybody that's Christian in faith knows that is God.
Yeah.
So when I say I'm meditating, I am usually listening to I am that I am. While I'm doing it. So and it always is followed by prayer. My prayer is followed by that.
So for a young man that has some of these things that overstimulate and whatnot, that would be the sort of the pieces that you give for him to be able to maybe be able to learn to have balance with that and to be able to control that better.
So if you notice, I didn't say anything about it. I play video games.
Yeah.
I stay in front of the TV. Now, granted, I'm a movie buff and I like movies and I remember movies. I have a really good memory to, random knowledge. As some of us do. I utilize video games to connect with my brothers because they play video games. I like video games, but I don't go out of my way to play because I know I have the TV and I have the laptop. I'm always working. I work mobile, right? Always my phone is always with me. And I'm very conscious of how much time I spent in front of a screen. Doesn't matter what type of screen it is a screen. So the same amount of hours that I'm in front of a screen, the same amount of hours I'm away from the screen. Because it's actually scientifically proven that technology causes more anxiety and increased blood pressure.
Yeah.
So if you don't believe me, by all means, look into it so you can see it, because we don't have all the time in the world in this.
There's a young man that I lead, and there was a group of them that went to church camp recently, and this guy, when he comes in, the first thing he does, he goes to the video game section, plays that until it's time to go and do worship stuff. We do the worship stuff, go into connection class. He's got his phone in his hand. He's trying to play, and I have to say, hey, we're going to put that away right now while we're together. This is our time for connection. Same thing when we have life group. Goes to church camp. They take your phones before you get on the bus or as soon as you get to camp, one of the two. You don't have your phone for the whole 3 to 4 days.
Retreat, right? So it's a retreat, a 3 or 4 day retreat, yeah.
100%. He came back, and the first Sunday I saw him again. Not only did I not see him run to the video game section, he actually came to me and his fellow classmates. We sat, we all talked in a group circle, 6, 7 of us, just talking. He didn't even look over at the video games. We go, we sit down.
Anxiety's not there anymore.
Yeah.
He didn't. He was able to disconnect from it, and now his anxiety went, I got to be in the game. I got to look at it. I got to see how my character did. I see how my village did. Oh my gosh, Clash of Clans. Clash of Clans.
And that's exactly, he's like, I haven't checked my phone at all. And like, I don't even want my phone. I just want to figure out like how to do the Bible stuff more. And I'm like, holy smoke, is this the same kid? How can that be?
Absolutely.
And to see firsthand that transformation it wasn't like it was some perilous 3-4 month journey. This was a 3 to 4 day retreat. And he comes back a whole different, ready to engage the world completely differently.
Amen to that.
And that just shows the difference of the video games, the phones, and having access constantly all the time, and what just taking yourself away from it can do to allow you to access, whether it's people more, relationships more, time with God more. And so when you got into the spiritual aspect of it and meditating, taking that time away as a young man to actually do that, was that from practices that you had with your father where he would remove those things, isolate? And as you developed, I'm sure your childhood perspective changed from your adult perspective of him. So I'm curious to understand how those things shifted.
So my family is religious, very religious. I grew up in Catholic Christianity. Okay, because Catholicism is a form of Christianity. A lot of people, they're like, oh, it's separate. No, it's the same Bible. It's the King James. It's the same Bible. My mom grew up non-denominational. She converted to Catholicism to keep the family together. Right? So which the Bible talks about, be equally yoked in faith, right? So, and she did that. My parents, just a small little rabbit hole, they divorced a year before I enlisted into the Marine Corps, didn't tell anybody until after I graduated from boot camp, and then told me, oh, by the way, we're divorced. Oh, wow. When I was 17, my mom asked me what I thought if they got divorced. I don't remember having a conversation with my brothers about them telling me what mom asked them. So my mom, knowing that I had real world experience, confided in me to ask me how I felt about them getting a divorce. Because she knew I'd already started doing personal development and I was doing things, and I talked to my mom during those times, like almost every day. Because I didn't want my mom to worry about me. The issue I had was not with my mom, it was with my father. So whereas growing up as an infant to about 7 or 8 years old, I was always, where's dad? I want to be with dad. When I was a baby, you see pictures, I'm hanging out with my dad. There was a shift in my upbringing because of actions that were taken by somebody else that caused me to react in a different way with a lack of communication that caused me to then do all the things that I did.
Yeah.
But I never lost that communication with my mother. So, and the reason why I came back to the house and left the house and came back multiple times was because of my mother.
Yeah.
So, that being said, let's rewind. Growing up, my father, Catholic household, we prayed before every dinner.
Mm.
We sat and read the Bible together. I know the homilies and the prayers like the back of my hand.
Mm-hmm.
I still do. I actually still use some of them because they're still biblical, right? And it's still, whether or not I attend a Catholic mass on a regular basis or not, I still read the Bible and I still practice the teachings of the Bible. And I'm a firm believer in the Bible is what you take from it. It's how it speaks to you, God, how God's word speaks to you as an individual. Someone else can interpret it their own way, but it's not going to hit home until you interpret it for yourself. So yes, go to church, go to the services, go to all these things, but spend some time on your own reading the Bible. So that way you can take in and soak up the knowledge for benefit. For, growing up, we always had a silly acronym: basic instructions before leaving Earth. It's the acronym for Bible, in jest, but it is the number one book in the world. Period. Like, that's facts.
Oh yeah.
Google it. It's also, the cross is like one of the top 3 symbols, right? Or the number one symbol as well.
Oh yeah.
Right, the crucifix. But very, very strict household growing up, but one-sided. And that one-sidedness is what causes dissension in the ranks, what causes the subordinates to rebel, is that lack of communication, that lack of reciprocity. So I learned a lot of good qualities from my father, but I also learned how not to communicate. And I learned through other methods how to communicate properly, especially with someone that I want my son to be a better man than me. In order for him to be a better man than me, he has to have received very similar training with better communication. So, and that's what I do for my son. I make sure that he is trained in all the areas that I am. I play instruments. I used to draw. I still paint. It's a form of therapy. I dance. I actually teach ballroom and Latin. Art is a therapy, right? And I love to do it. So I still coach people in that aspect. I make sure he's a well-rounded man. So that way when he ends up leaving the nest, as it were, he doesn't need to come back. He wants to come back.
Man, love that there. And I'm just checking the time here. I always attempt to be as respectful as possible of the guest time. I know you have an 11:30 outish. So, wow,
time is flying.
I know, right?
Yeah. Just looked at my watch right now. Dang it.
So when did you get baptized, and what led you to that?
I got baptized when I was 9 years old.
Oh wow, very young.
I was very young. So I've always had my own relationship with God, but as a youth, there's one thing, but as an adult is another. And that shift happens when you start doing more adult things in your life. So it's not about the age that you are. It's about the responsibilities that are now on your shoulders and how you should be operating in society. That's when the shift happens. That's when it's like, man, like I need to do more. I need to read more. I need to learn more. I need to be more involved. I need to give more. People don't realize that fulfillment is something that needs to be done. That's part of feeding your spirit. So I do pro bono work. I do free teachings, things like that. I do speakings or meetings with non-for-profit organizations, things like that, to help guide, to give back. I'm currently speaking with Full Sail University to create an integrated learning activity Fridays where I can teach what I do to the students for free.
Oh, man.
So that way they can benefit. They're all 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, the majority of them. There are adult students, but we all go back to school because a transition happened in our life.
Absolutely.
And some of us may or may not have worked through them all, or don't know where to go or how to maneuver through those things that happen to us. So we do what we can to get by, and we just quote unquote deal with the issues, pretty much just repress it, right? We just push it down and keep trucking,
Truthfully.
right? Suck it up, buttercup, right? Here's the straw.
Uh-huh.
You have an issue, grab a tissue type of deal. That was Austin Powers right there.
Oh, snap. I didn't know that.
That last one was Austin Powers. The suck it up, buttercup was, military.
Oh, man.
But yeah, fulfillment is something that people should be focused on. So they're the 6 basic human needs, right? Love, connection, certainty, uncertainty, fulfillment, and growth. If you don't have the first 4, you spend your life seeking those 4. The certainty of a connect, certainty of something. Who brought you certainty growing up? Was it your mother or your father? My mother brought me certainty. My father brought me uncertainty. I didn't know how things were going to happen. I didn't know what I did. How was the reaction going to be?
Yeah.
Like my father was he's still a very smart man. Like he has a doctorate in psychology. He's got a minor. He's very educated man. He graduated high school at 16 with straight A's and went straight into college.
Holy
My
smokes.
father's a very smart man. But even having those degrees, you don't know what you don't know, and they don't have manuals for raising children. So
Have you ever considered making a manual for raising children?
yes, it's actually part of, I want to do that right before I develop the retreat. Because the retreat's going to be age demographic specific. Because there's some things that young men need to learn.
100%.
And there's some things that older men need to learn. If they haven't, they need to have already passed that threshold or be indoctrinated into that threshold, that threshold. So, and the intensity level as well.
Thinking about the book, the number 1 book for raising your young
son,
boys.
your young boy to be a man, a good man, not a nice man, a good man.
Yeah. Oh man, and then that conversation about the difference between a nice man and a good man.
Yes, that's another conversation.
Man, I feel like there's so much for us to actually discuss and go down the rabbit hole of, and
I think we only went through 3 questions in that list.
That's crazy. Everything else was a rabbit hole.
Everything else was a rabbit hole. But, nuggets of knowledge, right? It's 100%. All very important stuff. But I think we only went through 3 or 4, maybe 3 or 4 questions.
And
which is fine. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, we have more questions. This is a lot of support, a lot of service that we can give.
Yeah.
Because we're able to dive deeper into each question.
For sure. And I think it's better that way, to be able to go deep on something than to just surface level on a million things. And also, like I said, I would love to bring you back as a panelist to be a group of 3-4 guys discussing topics, giving prompts, letting everybody just kind of,
absolutely,
and then of course that would be skipping the introductory stuff and all that jazz. But let's go ahead and I will give you this last segment piece here. What do you think is the state of men today, and how do you plan to contribute to a change of whatever you find deficient, especially spiritually?
The state of men. So, unfortunately, we're pandering to those that are not men. And I say not men as opposed to women, because it's not just women that are causing us to act the way that we act, or that we're allowing to shift our mindset and how we're supposed to behave. We need to hold our ground. It's no use pointing the fingers. I am this way because of that person and that person. Take some accountability. Be the better man. Hold your ground. Only then will you teach those behind you coming up how to act so that the future can change. So it all starts with, thank you, Michael, the man in the mirror. Right? What are you doing? What are you allowing in your life? You are what you continuously allow. If you keep allowing things, then it's going to keep happening. So if you want to be chivalrous, even though women are like, I can hold the door open myself. I know you can. But because I'm here, you don't have to. Because I want to be a gentleman. And I'm going to continue to be a gentleman, whether you like it or not. If you don't like it, here's a tissue. Right? Hold your ground. Like, you don't have to be an a-hole about it. You don't have to be a punk. Like, you can still hold your ground and be respectful.
People really think that the only way for you to be assertive is to also be aggressive with it.
That's not it. Aggression is a lack of control for your emotions. Men need to be more in control of your emotions so that you can control the energy in the room and the environment and the direction of conversations. If you notice, if you ever have an argument with somebody and you stay calm, they eventually will either calm down or leave because they can't handle how confident and how calm you are. They'll freak out. And either they'll leave or they'll calm down because you've also mentioned, hey, I'm speaking to you like a human being. I'm speaking to you like the man that you are. Show me the same respect, despite our disagreement.
Absolutely.
Talk to me. Just talk with me. The only way that you can get to a possible outcome is to have a conversation about it, not a yelling argument. So the moment that someone raises their voice, excuse yourself. Why are you leaving? Because we're not having a conversation. You're trying to talk at me, and I'm not going to accept that in my life. When you're calm and ready to have a conversation, then you can approach me. Until then, goodbye. Maybe check with me however long it takes. Some people, they're only angry for like 5 minutes. They'll come back and they'll be like, all right, let's talk about it. Some people hold on to it for a while.
Yeah.
When you're ready to talk, come back. Until then, I'm going to keep doing my life. Your issue is not my issue. That's a you issue. Figure it out. If you can't and you're ready to talk about it, then come back. Until then, peace out, homie.
100%. Absolutely.
Changing what you allow in your life and how you operate as a man. That's how you fix you. That's also how you fix the generations coming behind you.
Yeah.
Because now you're showing them, because they're little sponges that take in everything that they see and hear. You're showing them how to operate. And then have conversations with them as to why you're doing things the way you're doing them. So that way they understand the origin and the reason for it. So it's very daunting to me that some people don't know why they do things. They just do it.
Yeah.
So
the interesting part of this conversation, like, I love your approach and what you're doing with your son, because that's going to produce something very different than what most young men are coming up with, where either discipline or structure is very whimsical.
Or non-existent because they come from a broken home.
Yeah.
And the parent that has the child, whether it be the father or mother, doesn't allow the opposite to be involved. Like, whether or not your relationship worked out or didn't work out, you guys communicating properly is in the best interest for the child.
100%.
The father being in the picture is in the best interest for the child. The child's going to learn what good qualities and bad qualities are. Perfect example, hi guys. Like, I learned my dad I have nothing but respect for my dad. Like, I love my dad. I'll do anything for him. But I know the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I was able to separate.
And that's the part that it kind of trips me up a little bit when we always look at, the previous generation, and this is a habit across generations, raises up the next generation, that generation raises up the next generation, and then each previous generation says, when I was that age, we didn't. When I was that age, we didn't. Somehow forgetting that you were the people that put the tools into that generation's hand. Who gives the 10-year-old a phone? Who gives the 5-year-old an iPad so that they can start getting addicted to YouTube and TikTok? And I have some of my, like I said, going back to my boys, some of my boys have phones. Everybody has a phone. We have a group chat, allows us to talk. Some of them don't have phones. Their parents are like, no, you don't get a phone until XYZ. Oh, you left your phone on the back of the truck? Guess you don't get a phone for a couple of years here.
Yep.
And
It's a level of responsibility.
100%.
My son didn't have a phone for the longest, at least when he was with me. And when he did get a phone, it was a flip phone. It was for emergency only.
school.
It was for emergency only. It was the Razor.
Oh,
The Razor flip phone. Yeah. It wasn't
Yeah.
anything special. It was like, look, you just need a phone to be able to communicate with me in case 911, Dad, come get me.
100%.
You know.
Don't need a phone for
You
games.
don't need it for games, things like that.
all
Now, as he grew older, things like that, he showed me that he was responsible. Then when he's with me, he has a phone that I provide. When he's with his mother, he has one of her phones.
Something crazy I'm surprised a lot of parents don't do is say like, okay, if you are wanting this phone that can have these games, show me that you have the ability to do a Bible study devotional by yourself and to take X amount of time to be with God. Show me that you have the schedule to get that done for 3 months, and I'll consider it more. And then if you require more, show me that you have the ability to do that. Plus, you show me that, and if I give you this phone, it doesn't decrease, you get your phone. As soon as either of those start slipping, you lose the phone. That's I think it's so funny.
So I'm gonna dig deeper into that.
Okay, go ahead.
So I have a rule in my house. My son, for every hour of gameplay, is an hour of physical activity.
Oh,
So
I love
and
that.
remember, mind, body, and spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to have the phone. Your grades needs to stay A's and B's.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have the phone. For every hour of gameplay, there's an hour of physical activity. You want to use the phone. Your spiritual needs need to be met. So I divide that into 3 areas: upper spiritual growth, outer spiritual growth, and inner spiritual growth.
Let's go. That's what I'm talking
So
about.
what are you doing to grow your emotional knowledge and take care of yourself? What are you doing to grow your external or relationship knowledge and to help other people grow? And what are you doing to help your connection with God? Or if for whatever you believe in your spiritual beliefs, Christian house, God. Right? So, and that's how I'm raising. What are you doing? What do you know about the Bible? What's your favorite book? What's your favorite story? Your favorite parable? What's your, and we'll have conversations.
My man's out here doing exactly what I want to see parents to do. I love it. I love it, man.
And my retreat, my coaching method is going to be a very deep dive into that. And guess what? There's no technology allowed. In the retreat, there's going to be no technology allowed.
So good.
The only technology that's going to be there is the camera crew, So because you're going to be able to have this footage once you leave, and there's going to be footage of you doing whatever exercise and things like that. So you have memorabilia, and you can go back to what you learned.
100%. Because when people see those moments, they go back emotionally to them as well.
The emotional connection is what's going to breed, especially as long as it's a positive emotional connection.
Yeah.
The anchoring process is an emotional process.
Yep.
So get rid of the
That's
negative.
level 2 though. That's
let's stop right there before we keep going down that road.
Oh man, so good.
But
so
yeah,
good.
so the retreat will have that aspect in it, mind, body, and spirit balance, and it's going to be very intense and very you're in the deep end. You have to build your own house and the whole 9. Framework will be done, but you have to put everything together.
Hey, let's go. All right, my man. In honor of keeping your time at front of mind, we're going to go ahead and transition to the closing segments here. So I want to invite you to pick 3 pieces of everything that we discussed here or from past experiences. And those 3 pieces are for the audience to think about, meditate, pray on, and take action upon.
Okay. Daily action steps. Do things that will improve your mind, body, and spirit. And we went over this. I don't want to go down another rabbit hole. Upper, inner, and outer spiritual growth, fitness and nutrition, mindset, or mindset. Do something every day to improve just a millimeter. We're not talking about being perfect. We're talking about progress. Progress over perfection. I'm not the only one that says this. Every coach will say this, or should say this. If they're not, they should say this. Perfection's a fallacy. That's number 1, right? Second thing, your past does not equal your future so long as you don't live there. I have a past. I definitely don't live there because I learned from it. I was able to break down the logic from the emotion, separate it, and change the action steps that I do on a daily basis to better my life. So your past does not equal your future so long as you don't live there. I had to repeat that one. And the third thing is actually a quote that's going to encompass everything that I tell everybody, especially first clients. You don't drown by falling in the river. You drown by staying in the river too long.
Okay. I got to geek out on these a little bit.
Absolutely. Let me repeat it real quick before you geek out.
Okay.
You don't drown by falling in the river. You drown by staying in the river too long.
Those pieces I especially like. And the bit about when it comes to your past isn't your future unless you live there. And the idea of how this affects and lives with repentance. So many people, I'm a Christian. I repent from something and then go right back to it.
They haven't done the dark work yet. They're speaking what they desire, but they're not doing the work that's required.
Mm-hmm.
So they're living in a dream world.
Love it, man. And then it's okay to get wet in the river.
That's right.
To be wet.
It's okay.
But if you stay in that river for 168 hours, you're going to get pneumonia and you're going to become fish food.
Mm-hmm. Or you stay there too long and the current picked up and there's a waterfall. A really high one.
Man.
So the river could mean any adversity in life. That's what the river signifies. There's also critters in the river. Crocodiles, alligators, piranhas, whatever you want to call it, freshwater sharks. They're all in there. And they're all, food chain and all that, right? You're in their world now, so you're not at the top of the food chain anymore. Now you're kind of like in the middle. Smaller fish beware, but bigger fish, they got you.
Right. Man.
But yeah, so many things that you can do. You were like really pay attention to the words in that sentence
100%.
and actually connect it to the areas of your life. And you're like, wow, I'm still living in the river.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't swam upstream. Like the current's getting big. Like overwhelm is hitting in. Like when the current starts getting bigger, that's overwhelm. Like I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. I need to get out.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever in that moment in your life that's causing that overwhelm, don't do it no more. Like, step away for however long. Everybody is different.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know until you take the step.
Yeah.
Most people are afraid to do it.
Love it, man. So good. So good. And then the next part, you guys make sure to come back and definitely pick up those 3 pieces that he had. Those were so good, and really meditate on them. Meditate on them, open up the Bible, read some scripture in there, and really do some piecing togethers here. The next piece of the closing segments are, what are 3 of any question that you may have? You may ask it, and I will answer completely honestly.
Oh, goodness. How long have you been a mentor?
Interesting.
Because it wasn't like yesterday, for sure. Because this whole process took time, and it took a revelation to build to this point.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely some time put in the game, so to speak. So, and I think it would be really good for everybody to know just how much commitment you have into this, because this is like your whole life thing. Like you've always been this level of. So I just wanted to know, is the coaching aspect on my part, 14 years, but I've been a Christian my whole life, and I've been talking about it my whole life.
Yeah.
So, and it's probably very similar for you.
I would say, if we're defining mentor, is that someone that's intentionally pouring into someone, or someone that's just in a leadership role over other people?
Any moment that you were educating somebody.
I would
Because people don't really realize. So you gain knowledge by learning about a subject, but you gain mastery by teaching it back.
Right.
So those that have the ability to connect with its level of teaching for people to understand what you're saying, or those aha moments, those really gut punch things that you say. They had to have had practical application in talking about that and implementing it and helping people grow in their life to have that level of impact. And you speak very eloquently about everything that you all your topics, and passionately about everything you do. So I know that there's years of work there. So I know that it's, for me, I already know, like, you don't have to say it, but this is for all the viewers. I'm sure that that like,
I would say really it probably started at about maybe even like 8, 9 years old then. I'm the oldest of 4, the second oldest of 8. And
big
so
family.
Oh yeah, man.
Lots of stories there.
Oh man.
For sure.
Many branches too. And with having all those younger siblings, I was never like a typical problem older child. In fact, I was usually one of the most well-behaved. Usually people counted on me to be like the role model. And there were moments that I stepped out to do my own thing, but some of those stints were very short, and typically they were with the blessing of whoever the family was. So probably from about 9, I can remember teaching my younger siblings how to fight, how to do certain exercise, how to throw punches, how to, when to fight someone, when not to.
The fight starts here and here.
Yeah. Having that inner part of you that resonates with justice, even as a child. We watched anime a lot, and so that contributed.
So did we. Dragon Ball Z,
man.
Ranma and half, all the OG animes.
Oh yeah, Yu Yu Hakusho, all of it.
Yeah, all of that. Absolutely. We're definitely nerds in the best of ways.
Man,
some very best of ways. Some people don't understand. They don't know.
They just don't know.
They just don't know. Yeah.
So yeah, I would say probably about that. Thank you for that question. I've never gotten that before.
No worries. Where do you see all of your efforts or work going in relations to podcasts and mentorship 5 years down the road?
I would say the goal would be that at some point within that 5-year span, I am able to bring in anywhere from 1 to 4 boys, ideally at least 4, that I can take in and have it arranged with the parents, 3 to 6 months worth of them coming in, doing different work with the podcast where we are coming in. I'm teaching them how to use everything, how to set everything up, the differences between different platforms and operations,
trade certificate.
Yeah, essentially, man.
Yeah.
And even I went to a networking event recently. It was a Black men's conference, and there was a table of all either high school aged boys or early college boys. And there was one man there that represented the whole table who was probably about 27, 28 years old. I would love to be able to take my team of boys to different conferences and events for them to be filled up in those ways, to get this education from doing things like this so they can take it and use it and have skill sets themselves, have certain certifications that I could recommend for them, put them through a whole curriculum in that time, and just have this be a process that fills them up so much. When I was in high school, I was very entrepreneurial minded. I was selling candy too. And
respect.
I tried not to jump in because I'm like, this is about him.
You're good. Candy dealers over here.
Yeah, man. And so I was always looking for like, where is a place that I can just do business at? And I didn't know anything about Chamber of Commerce, networking events, nothing. So one of my biggest fears is that there's a young man out there with a business mind who has no outlet for it.
No tools.
And he just has to go to work at a soup kitchen making $8.25 an hour instead of being able to go in, do something, build up skills, and then become an asset to whoever that person was that built them up. So I would love to be able to do that for a group of young men every 3 to 6 months and have a rotation of, this young man came and now he's recommending his friend come, or his younger brother in a couple years comes and join. I would love that. And I just did the table tap thing.
Yeah, no, it's hard not to do.
Right.
It's hard not to do. We gotta put rubber on all of the
Yeah,
things.
man.
We gotta figure it out, or have a side table.
Where we can
just be like this, like right here.
Oh man,
on it.
so good. So that's what I would that would be like one of my biggest, and of course to just be able to support my family. If I can make enough to cover rent, food, maybe cars too, I'd be good. My wife could work from home, do telehealth from home, and that's our little play money.
Okay,
I'm a simple man.
Yeah. Okay. Third question.
Mm-hmm.
What were your biggest takeaways from this interview?
Oh man, my biggest takeaways from it were
abbreviated, of course.
Absolutely.
Or else we'll be here for another 2 hours.
Right. I'm a man that expounds. I would have to say the part of your number 2 takeaway was so big, and I think I've always tried to know how to word it in like a very succinct way, and I think that way words it very well. It's okay to have the past. Your past isn't your future unless you live in the past. I think that's a very succinct way of doing it, and I'll probably use it going forward.
Go right ahead. Not a problem.
I love that a lot. And then the pieces involving what you're actually doing with your son, and that thing of 1 hour of fitness towards 1 hour of gameplay. Love that. And
or
I think
electronic use,
period.
Electronic use, period. If you're in front of a screen for an hour, you're outside or in the gym for an hour, or training or something.
And I think that's something that, even as a grown man, I need to implement more of, really and truly. And as a kid, certainly, if you can get that down pat at that age and just keep the habit, I think that's great. And then I would say the last part is, even understanding what you've done to actually see your navigation of between, like, I didn't know about the gang life thing, and to see how you navigated that and the way that God blessed you with someone that was willing to allow you. Yeah, man.
You would never think.
It certainly, I think it gave more understanding to the whole persona, to be able to see like, oh man, this guy actually has, between the military experience, the family, religion, gangs, like he's been exposed to a multitude of different types of group thinks and value systems that he's been able to now pick the pieces of each different system to implement them where he wants to. And so, whereas some people grow up purely Christian, some people grow up with some military experience, but they reject everything else. Some people grow up with gangs and then never get into. You've been in all, from literally the purest of things into the darkest of things.
Trying to find a home.
Yeah.
And the home was never external. That's the whole learning experience. No matter where you dabble into or you dive into, remember, home is here. And here, you have control over your mind, your words, and your actions. That's it. There's no other control. You have no control over anything else except for that. That's what the only other, and there's only 2 other things that are promised aside from that, and that's change. Everything's going to change, whether for the better or for the worse. Everything's going to change. Get used to it, make peace with it, embrace it so that you can move forward positively. And we're all going to die someday, and we don't know when. So
Absolutely.
What are you doing to give back to the world, to make the world a better place for those we leave behind?
Yeah, man. It's
just more knowledge. Just a little more nuggets there.
So it's those things have really done a lot to help me to flesh you out more and see like, this is a man of experience here. Okay.
He done a little something in his life.
Shine, you know?
A little something. Been around a little bit.
Which is also good because you see like this post 2020, post really 2021, this post modern world where so many people are coming out as things like life coaches or consultants who just don't actually have the experience to be doing it. And so to actually have the experience and whatnot, those are things that people really need. Not a 18-year-old being like, you need to grind hard. Or like I was telling you, the kidpreneurs who are like telling you about life and the work-life balance and da-da-da-da-da and their kids. But you actually have the fleshed out experience, and I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you.
Absolutely, man.
But yeah, this is not just about its knowledge and practical application. It's also experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like you want to help those coming up behind you be better people and have better lives. Same thing for me. I want to help be a solution for how men are operating right now, so that way they can operate properly and actually be the head of the household. There's nothing wrong with, so jump into one more thing here, just one more thing. We all, men and women, have both masculine energy and feminine energy. Our natural state as men is to live in our masculine energy, and a natural state as women is to live in their feminine energy. Mm-hmm. Do they cross paths? Very often. People often think that, oh, you're a guy, you should be able to handle all those things. Mm-hmm. We still have feelings. We still get burned out. We still get fed up. We still have emotions. We still cry. We're taught, at least in my generation, we were taught to never cry. We were taught to suck it up and keep pushing through. But they never told us when to work on things. And especially in the Marine Corps is suck it up, keep going. Like, we have a mission to accomplish. Mm-hmm. It's mission oriented. But there are moments when you can, during the mission, during downtimes of the mission, work through emotions or work through events that happened, so that way you don't come back with as severe PTSD. We're always going to come back with some type of PTSD because we're seeing things that the average person do not. Mm-hmm. So there's always going to be a level, but it's not going to be as hard. You'll be able to navigate and manage through those things better. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me stop there because I can go down more. Yeah, let's just save it for episode 2. Episode 2.
And we'll certainly be having them back on, folks. I mean, man, there was so much here. What is one thing now that you would either like to confess, that you would like to, that maybe you're struggling with, or something that you want to give a praise about, that I and the audience can come around you together in prayer about?
There is someone that has my attention. And I would very much like for it to be long-term.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, there's hurdles, but we both desire the same thing.
Okay.
Long story short.
Okay.
To not put anybody out there, like, say any names or things like that, and just pray for everything to work out as God wants it to work out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right,
So
y'all
that's like
heard
the
it,
biggest
folks.
thing. I'm a single dad, but I'm trying to get that ring on the finger.
Hey, I hear it. So at this time, folks, let's go ahead and gather around our man and pray it up for him. Dear Lord and Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that you have allowed for us as two men to be able to come together, to be able to have this conversation, to be honest about these different elements, whether it is the struggles that we've had in the past or just the ways that we've overcome them. We're grateful, Lord, that we can step in and be in front of these cameras and be able to glorify you through everything that we have lived through, and show how, as long as we trust in you and walk towards you, you will always work it out. You will put people around us who bless us in ways that maybe we don't even understand at the time and that we come to understand later. Dear God, I thank you for Jorge. He's been an absolute blessing to myself, to the audience. His energy and his light, his love for life, his discipline and his regiments, they are just true testaments to you, God. And so I thank you for what you're doing in his life, what you've done in his life, and what you will do in his life. And as you do work in his life, Lord, we know that he has a certain desire in his heart. And we know that it's a desire that you give us as men to have, to seek out a good woman and to want to make something more with a good woman. And so as Jorge goes down that path, seeking out something good and healthy, we pray that it can glorify you, that you would be at the head and the front of whatever may happen with that, God, and that they would lean onto you and your teachings, and that they could reflect on that. We pray that you would stir in her heart as you're stirring in his heart, and that there would be a natural affinity and a connection that they can only recognize as a God-given connection. We thank you, Lord. We thank you for him, his parents, his son. We pray for his son that he would be able to just continue to grow closer to his father, that they would continue to foster that connection and relationship. And we just pray that the rest of this day may be blessed for Jorge and for all that he encounters. We thank you, Lord, and we pray for the audience as well, that they have been blessed in this, that they can come to this and feel like they're coming to understand a good man, and that they can take the pieces that he had for them and implement them into their lives. We thank you, Lord, and it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. My man.
Thank you.
Brother. It's been so good. You guys, it has been phenomenal here. I cannot wait to get this man back on, and I am angry at myself. I did not turn my phone off. My guests are always better than me. But what perfect timing, because this has been another amazing episode. Be sure to tune in next time with the Inspired Challenge podcast, and have a great rest of the week. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Oh, man. What timing on that, huh?
Absolutely. Well, we're still sharing on the platform, too.